this session, we will review how to input a new account into the system. For that, we're going to go to Accounts at the top left corner of the screen. As we open Accounts, you will notice you have two icons, one called New Account, the other called New Account Short Form. The difference between the two is the short form is indeed a shorter form to fill out to input the member into the system, but the short form does leave out some key portions of the account, such as setting up the customer's payment method. If you are wanting to input all of the information at once, definitely use the new account form. If you are a facility that has maybe your employees input the general information, and maybe the back office will complete the entry of the account by setting up the payment method, then feel free to utilize the new account short form. But today we're going to focus on new account. As we click on new account, account ID is the first field that we see here, and this is where we are to input the customer's membership account number. Typically was entered as the account number is the customer's key tag number or their scan card number that they use for the club. Once we have inputted their account number, we next come to the screen where we input the customer's contact information. The top section is where we would input the customer's name, address, telephone numbers, work information, email, as well as any driver's license, birthday information that we may have for the customer. There's a couple of fields to point out here, the one called spouse and the one called additional. These are just extra fields where you could type in if the customer does have a spouse attached to the account or an additional member. You could either input that customer's account number or name into either one of these fields. Just keep in mind that this is just really for office use only. These fields do not create a secondary account for that person listed here or affect billing in any way, shape, or form. Beneath the additional field, you'll notice that there is two checkboxes, one called No SMS and one called No Calling. These both pertain to additional services that club systems can provide for you, such as text messaging your members or sending out automated calls for different reasons. If you're currently not enrolled in those services, do not worry about these boxes because they will not do anything. In the event that you do enroll in text messaging or automated calling, by clicking the box here, this would exempt this person from receiving these sorts of contacts. The second section is labeled Account Information, and this is where you would set up the membership information itself. So starting at the top, our first field is called Primary Member. Primary member just means the main person of the account. If you're inputting a single member today and they're going to be the sole person on the account with no links or sub-accounts, then that will automatically make them the primary of this account. So there's no need to duplicate their name or account number in this field, since they're the only person on the account that will automatically make them the primary member. The only time you would have to input information into this field is, say, for example, you're inputting an add-on to an existing member in your system. This add-on is now being inputted into the system and you're wanting to notate who the primary account holder is going to be, and that's where you would put the existing member's account number into this particular field. So that is what will link this new add-on or link to that existing primary member in the system. Contract number is next. If your facility's agreements do have some sort of a numbering system, then you can certainly input what this customer's contract number is in this field. If your facility does not have numbered contracts, then feel free to skip over this particular field. The next field we see is called Fulfillment Date. This is also what's known as the term or obligation date that the person is signing up for. So if they've signed a one-year contract or a one-year agreement, then the fulfillment date would be set to a year out from today. Join date is the next field that we see. Join date is simply notating when they joined the facility. Expiration date follows that. An expiration date is when the membership is actually set to expire. If most of your memberships roll over, even if the year has been met, etc., then you would just leave your expiration dates as open-ended. This just simply means that the customer at this time does not have a true expiration date, and if and when that customer finally does come in to cancel their account, you would be able to come back into their account and set up their expiration date accordingly. So at this time, when inputting a new member, the only time that you have to really adjust their expiration date is, say, if this is some sort of a paid in full membership. If the customer has signed up and paid for a certain period of time and you would like that membership to definitely end at that time, then you can set up the expiration date accordingly, and that would just mean that the membership is expired at the end of, say, that year or whatever it is that they signed up for. Keep in mind that the expiration date is not going to affect billing in any way, shape, or form. The expiration date is simply notating when the membership is expired, and this will affect their checking in capability only. Join amount is the next field that we see here, and join amount is simply notating what the customer paid upon joining the facility. If you would like to notate that on their account, the join amount field is not a billing field. Sales rep is the next drop-down menu that we see, and this is where you could notate the employee that has signed this member up. The final drop-down menu that we see in this particular section is called Site Number, and this is if your facility had multiple locations and you were wanting to specify which location this person belonged to. In the center portion here, we have another drop-down menu labeled Type, and this is where you would select the membership type that this person is signing up for. Underneath Type, we have another drop-down menu, which is called Group, and this is if you wanted to categorize this person into a special group, if that applied to them. Code is the next drop-down menu we have, and this is to notate a status code for the person. If this is a new member with no issues, then you can certainly just leave their code as it is, set to OK. If for some reason you're maybe needing to catch that person the next time they check in, or you need to flag their account at this point because something needs to be addressed with them, then you can certainly change their status code, and the next time the person checks in, they will be red screen in your front desk. We'll be able to see exactly what the code is asking for, so we can address that issue with the customer. Locker number, locker expire, and locker fee pertain to if your facility does indeed have assigned lockers. You would notate the locker number in the first field. If their usage for that locker is going to expire at a certain time, you can notate that under locker expire. And then if you do charge the customer a locker fee, then you can notate what that fee is here. Keep in mind that notating the locker fee is just simply for your office use only. This is not a billing field. This will not charge the customer the amount that you've specified here. If you do have a locker rental fee that you charge your customers, please make sure to set that up as an additional service so you can add it on to this member account. And then the last two fields that we see in this middle section are called freeze date and thaw date. And this pertains to putting an account on freeze or hold. We will discuss this a little bit more in depth in the training session called Modifying of Accounts. But just to know what these fields do, setting the freeze date is just specifying when the freeze or hold is going to start. And the thaw date is setting the date as to when it's going to end. It's important to remember that these two fields will not affect a customer's billing whatsoever for their membership or for their services. These will only affect a customer's checking in capability. So if they were to try to check in during their freeze period, they will red screen, and your front desk will be able to see that this customer is clearly on a freeze. Moving on to the last area of this account information section, we do have a field called Messages where you could type in any temporary notes that you would like to have on this member's account. These can be changed and deleted as time goes on, and you will be able to read anything in this Messages section from the check-in screen for that customer. Miscellaneous is just an extra space that you have to type in any information that you would like to put there. Beneath Miscellaneous, we see a series of 3 checkboxes called No Late Fee, No Charging, and No Mail. Starting with No Late Fee, if your facility does charge a late payment fee to your customers, then by checking this box, that would exempt this person in particular from receiving those late payment fees. The next checkbox is called No Charging, and this is one to pay special attention to. No charging is tied directly to our point of sale system. There is a payment method that you can select from point of sale that's called on account, which will allow a customer to place their owing amount from point of sale on their account as a balance owing. So in essence, they're kind of running up a tab, if you will. So by saying, okay, this customer has no charging to their account, that just simply means they cannot charge point of sale items onto their account as a balance owing to pay for later. Keep in mind that this no charging checkbox has absolutely nothing to do with membership billing or billing for any additional services that are set up to the account. These are actually a permission restriction for point of sale and not allowing this customer in particular to charge things to their account and run up a balance. No mail is the next checkbox that we see, and by checking no mail on this customer's account, this would exempt them from receiving any written correspondence, whether it's emails sent out from the facility or if you were to print letters or statements. This person in particular would receive no written correspondence. Hear About Us is next. If you'd like to notate how the customer heard about your facility, you would be able to select one of the options under this drop-down menu. And then finally, the last field that we have in this section is called Referring Member. If one of your existing members has referred to this new person to the club and you would like to notate that, especially if you wish to compensate or reward those members in some way, you can notate who the referring member is here by either typing in their membership account number if that information is available, or you can search for that person in your system by their last name and simply select the member name from that list, and you'll see that that places the membership account number into this field for you. And there is a listing that you can run under your wizards under main reports where you can see who your referrals are if you wish to compensate them or reward them in some way. Moving down, our next section is called Sub-Accounts, and this is where you could input additional members that will be on this account. If you have a couple that's joining today or a family that's joining today, be sure to put whomever's paying for the account at the top under the under the contact information section. So by notating that person here in this particular area, that's going to make them the primary member of the account. And then as we come down to the bottom here under sub-accounts, you could input the additional members. So you notice that you have a space to input that individual's account number, so their key tag or scan card number can go in the first field. Then we move on to input their first name and then their last name. And then if you click on the icon to the right of last name, you will have a few more fields that will drop down where you can include this person's birth date, email address, and selecting their gender if you so choose. Keep in mind that you will see that there's 4 additional spaces here to input 4 members on this one account, in addition to the primary that we have at the top. You do have capability of inputting even more links to any primary account. It's just that the system only allows you to do 4 at a time. So you would just input the first 4 at this time. And once you're complete with the entry of this account in the system, you can go back into that primary account and continue to input links to that primary account in groups of 4. And there's not really a limit as to how many sub-accounts you can have on one primary account. You can have several. The next section that we see here is called Notes, and this is where you could type in any permanent notes that you would like to have stored on this member's account that you can review in the future at any time. The last section that we see at the bottom of the screen is called Admittance Schedule, and this is if your facility does have check-in restrictions, maybe for this person on certain days. If you have maybe limited memberships where members can only come in during certain weekdays, during certain hours, you can use that schedule for this particular purpose, as well as if you have restrictions for minors using the facility. Maybe they're only allowed in the facility during certain hours. You can set in the check-in restrictions here as well for that purpose. So just putting in a name here so we can move on to our next screen to see what that looks like. Once we have all of the customer information in and this first screen filled out, we would go ahead and click Next at the bottom. It will ask you to please confirm that all the information is correct, as you'll not be able to return to this page. And that is true. Once you click Next, you cannot come back to this original sign-up page that we have here, but in the event that maybe you mistyped something or selected something incorrectly, you will be able to go into the Modify Account screen and adjust the account what's in the system and saved. You can adjust it after the fact. So clicking on OK, we come to the next screen where it's asking us to select the payment method on how the customer is going to be paying for their membership. So the first two options are EFT options, as we see here, monthly bank EFT, monthly credit card EFT. So these are the auto debits or electronic funds transfer, as EFT stands for. These are our first two options for auto debiting the customer monthly for their membership. The next series of payment methods are called direct bills. You have a monthly direct bill, quarterly direct bill, semi-annual direct bill, or annual direct bill. So these are more so for a statement billing. These will apply the membership dues to the member's account when they're due, but it will just simply show as a balance owing until the customer comes in to pay that balance. So you do have these four options for statement billing. And then the final payment method is called a non-payer, and that's if this person is not going to be paying for their membership. So the member types or members that you may consider to be non-payers would be those members that have paid in full. If they've paid you in advance for their membership and they're not going to be drafting for anything moving forward, they can be inputted now as a non-payer, as well as any sub-accounts or links that are simply being added to other member accounts in the system, and those other members are going to be paying for it. Then these links or sub-accounts can also be put in as a non-payer. In addition to possibly any members that maybe have won a free membership or have been comped a membership, you can put them in as non-payers, as well as your employees. If you have your employees in the system as members because they use the facility, you can put them in as non-payers if they're not being charged for their membership. So starting with the first option that we have, monthly bank EFT, that would be a customer that is paying directly through their bank account using their bank routing number and account number. So making that selection and clicking Next at the bottom, we now come to the screen to input their banking information. So starting at the top, we would type in the bank's name. The second field, we would type in the bank routing number. In the third field, we would type in the bank account number. And then you do have an option here for notating whether or not this is a savings account. So it is important to notate if it is a savings account. That way when we're presenting the charges to the bank, they are searching for the account number under the correct category. The amount field has already been filled in for us here, and that's based on the membership type that I selected on the previous screen. So if this amount is correct, you would leave it just as it is. If it needs to be modified or changed, you can certainly change it at this point if you needed to. And that's also based on your system settings. Some facilities will allow for changes or adjustments to be made at this point, and others may not. So just keep that in mind. If your facility will allow you to change it at this point, you should be able to click in this field and simply change the amount that's going to be billed monthly for this member. Taxable, yes or no, is next, where you would select yes if you do charge tax on top of your membership dues. And then if you are charging tax, you would set the tax rate percentage in the field that follows. The next two fields are called Start Draft Date and End Draft Date. And this is basically setting the begin drafting or billing date that we would like to start with, and then the end draft date as to when the customer is supposed to stop billing, if indeed they're supposed to stop at a particular time. So setting the start draft date is just simply telling the system we want to begin drafting or billing the member in this month and year. The end draft date can be left open-ended if the majority of your members are going to continue to draft until they decide to cancel their membership. You would just leave the end draft date open-ended to December 2099, which is the highest date range that we have available within the software at this time. Next, you would place them on a billing cycle. These are not the days of the month, as you can tell, because we only have numbers 0 through 9. This is more so how many billing cycles you have at your particular facility. Using the example of a facility that maybe bills twice a month on the 1st and the 15th, that would then include 2 billing cycles. You have your first billing cycle, which is your members billing for the 1st, and then you have your second billing cycle, which would be your group of members that bill on the 15th. So that's how these cycle numbers would work. Depending on how many dates per month you bill your members on will determine how many billing cycles you have. So if you only bill your members once a month for everyone, then all of your members would be set to cycle 1, which is your one and only billing cycle. If you have 2 dates out of the month, then we're now dealing with either cycle 1 or cycle 2. Cycle 1 is always for the date that's earlier in the month. Cycle 2 is always for the second billing date out of the month that you bill on, and so on and so forth. If you are needing assistance with using these billing cycles or setting those dates with Club Systems, feel free to contact our customer service and we can assist you with that. Print bill is next, and this is if we would like to print a bill for this member, and we're going to say no since it's an auto debit from their bank account. We do not need to print them a separate bill. This is going to be automatically drafted from their account. You will notice that at the bottom of this, you have a separate section called Credit Card on File. If you're utilizing our point of sale system, then you can utilize this particular option, which is allowing your customers to store a credit card on file for point of sale transactions only. That is the only purpose for this separate area, is to have a credit card on file for point of sale transactions. So if you would like to extend that offer to your customers, that they can just keep a card on file for when they would like to purchase retail from point of sale, feel free to input that separate card information down here, and that will be the only purpose we use the card for, is for point of sale transactions. Okay, so just going back, we're going to look at our second payment option, which is monthly credit card EFT. So that's, of course, the customer wanting to pay through their credit card or debit card. Up at the top, we would simply type in the credit card number, expiration month and year, the amount that's to be billed monthly for the customer. You would set up any necessary tax if that's to be applied to their monthly dues, set a start date as to when we would like to begin drafting this customer in the system, and then set an end draft date or leave it open-ended for continuous billing. We would then put them on their appropriate billing cycle as to when they need to be actually billed in the system. And then as far as print bill, this is also going to be a no, since this is an auto debit from their credit card. There is no need to print an additional bill for them. These members will also have that option of storing a credit card on file. The only difference that we see here is that it now says use above credit card info. So that is just giving the customer the option to use the same card that they use for their monthly billing, also for the point of sale. So they can just use the same card by checking the little box to use the same info as above for their credit card on file for point of sale. If they wish to use a completely separate card for this purpose, the credit card on file for point of sale, you would just uncheck that box and go ahead and type in that separate card number down here at the bottom. And once we are complete with typing in their billing information, we would click Next to go to our next screen. Going back, we're going to take a look at monthly direct bill. If you have cash members that come in and pay you monthly, or statement members that are not auto-debited, you can utilize monthly direct bill for those sorts of customers. Monthly direct bill will definitely allow you to set up their monthly dues, the tax, when the billing is supposed to start for them and when it's supposed to end. You can still put them on a billing cycle as to when their owing fees need to be applied to their account. And in this case, since possibly you may want to print off statements for your customers, where it says print bill, you can set it to yes if you are going to be printing out bills for these customers. These members will also have that option of storing a credit card on file for point of sale transactions only. If you type in the card information here, it will definitely just be used for point of sale purposes. This stored method of payment is not going to be used toward their monthly dues. So once we've set this up accordingly, we would go ahead and hit Next at the bottom. we will be able to see here that this is bringing us to the third screen, which is just an overview of all the data entry that you just completed from that first screen where we were typing in the customer's name and address and phone numbers, down to the second screen where it had us set up the payment method for the customer. And then we have a series of icons at the bottom of the screen. So depending on what you're needing to do at this point, if you're simply doing data entry and just wanting to get this customer in the system as a new member and you're not needing to do anything after that, then you can click Continue. What Continue is going to do is simply just take you to the next new member screen if you're just doing data entry at this point. And if you're complete with inputting your customers, you can just simply X out of the screen after you've clicked Continue, and then you'll just be back on your normal club system screen. So for just a simple data entry purposes, you're not needing to go to point of sale or anything like that. You can certainly just hit Continue and it will just take you on to your next new member screen. You do have a button here called Close, and be careful with this one, because if you click Close at this point, this will definitely just cancel and erase everything that you just did. So if for some reason, if you've gotten this far in the process of inputting the member and whether they changed their mind, or maybe you noticed a huge discrepancy on the paperwork and you want to make sure that it's straightened out before you put the customer in the system, you can click Close at this point. It would basically just erase everything that you just did. Now, you do have an option as well as going to additional services. If this customer has signed up for a new membership, but maybe also they've signed up for an additional service, whether it's locker rental, child care, any of the additional services that you offer, you can at this point click on additional services. That's going to bring up your additional service menu, and you can tack on whichever service they've signed up for to their account. So the way we would add the service to this new member is go ahead and check off on the left the little checkbox next to the service name that they've signed up for. In this case, maybe this person has signed up for childcare at $20 a month, so I've checked that box. You have some additional options pertaining to your services from this point, and these are definitely optional for you to extend to your customers. Those options would be that you can definitely set the service to bill on a separate payment method. As we roll our mouse over the wallet that's on the far left of this line item, it says click here if the member would like to use a different bank or credit card account that's what's used for their monthly billing. So if the customers may be paying for their membership dues out of their bank account, but maybe this child care service, they would like that billed to their credit card, you can definitely do that. So by clicking on the wallet, it will drop down your payment method selections. You simply click on the one that the customer is wanting to use and go ahead and type in that billing information, and that will just simply have this service bill out on this separate payment method. So that is an option that you have to extend to your customers if you would like. It's certainly not required. In addition to setting it on a separate payment method, the other option that you would have is putting it on a different billing cycle that you bill on. So as long as it's one of the billing cycles that you use, you can break up the payments for the customers if you choose to give them that option. So using the same example that we used previously, if your facility bills on the 1st and the 15th, we're talking about cycle 1 and cycle 2. If your membership billing is coming out on the 1st, maybe for their service, you're saying, okay, well, I'll bill that to you on the 15th. You can break it up that way as long as they're put on one of the billing cycles that you do use. Now, that is completely optional. You do not have to extend that offer to your customers, but just letting you know what the system is capable of doing. You can definitely just leave it as it is and have everything come out on the same date every month. Now, also taking a look at some of the further options that we have pertaining to these additional services, you do have a column here for making something an annual charge, so that will charge the customer the fee that we have here yearly versus monthly. So pay special attention to that. If you do want to make something a yearly charge, for example, we have this annual maintenance fee at the top here. If I check that off, it's $30, and according to these settings that I'm going to put in, it's going to be every June 1st, based on the example that we've been using because it's on a cycle 1 for the 1st. And if I check it off as being annual, it says annual charges will be billed starting in the month/year of the start date and continue annually until the end month year. So that basically means that this particular charge will be a yearly charge charged every June 1st starting this year, and then there's no end date. So that's just meaning it's going to be yearly, it's going to be ongoing until this person cancels. Once this person comes in and cancels, then you can come back into the account and make adjustments to the end date so that they don't continue to bill for that yearly charge. So those are additional options that you have within this area. And then finally, these last few columns pertain to sessions. This ties in with personal training and things of that nature. If you choose to bill your customers for personal training monthly, and maybe with every month of billing for their training, they get a certain number of sessions, and that's when you can utilize these last three columns. So let's just say, for example, we're using tanning as a session or a visit type item. So tanning at $15 per month, and maybe with every monthly billing of $15, they get one session. So I would just notate that here. We tell the system under the start date when the customer is to begin billing for the service. And then based on the end date, I'm just going to leave that open-ended for continuous monthly billing at this time. And then they're going to get one session per draft each time that they're drafted on June the 1st. And you would tie in the item from your particular point of sale. So we'll just go ahead and select something here. And then if this is going to be with a particular employee each time, then you can select the particular employee. So this is better utilized for things like training. Unfortunately, I don't have a training line item here, but you see where you can notate how many sessions the person's going to get. You can notate under your inventory that it is for PT or personal training, and then you can even specify who their trainer is in the final column. So that is what these three last columns are utilized for. So if you made any selections into this particular additional service area, then you would just click Save at the bottom. So I'm just going to go ahead and click Childcare as I had previously, starting in June, and then just go ahead and save that. So at this point, being that we're trying to input this new member into the system, in most cases you're going to have the person there in front of you and you're just wanting to take payment for what's due today if anything is due today from the customer. So in most cases we're just going to go straight to point of sale. And as our point of sale screen opens, we're just going to bring up our membership type or whatever it is that's due from the customer on our receipt here. I'm going to utilize the inventory drop-down menu to just simply go and locate the items that I would like to charge this customer for today. And once we have our items on the screen and we're ready to take payment for those items, we would come down to the payment options in green and simply select what the customer is using today to pay for their transaction. So selecting cash for this particular transaction, we see that the field for cash is automatically highlighted. So here we're to input the total cash amount that's being received from the customer. So maybe they're paying us today with $45. Maybe they are giving us two 20s and a $5 bill. We would put in $45 as our total cash received. We see in the second column where it says member number, that number is already filled in for us because we're still in the process of getting this new member in the system, and this is the new member's account number, so that's already filled in for us. So you do have the option of emailing the customer a copy of their receipt by checking email, and then you're going to see that their email address will populate into this field for you if you indeed put an email address for their account. If not, you can certainly type in their email address and have it sent to them as well. And at the very bottom, we want to make sure as the employee that we're putting in our employee user password, just notating that we are the ones that process this transaction at this time. So we would go ahead and click on Finish. And that would complete the entry of this new member in the system. So we see the sale, We see the receipt number, the employee that rang it up, all of the details of the transaction, and we even see the new customer that this was for at the very bottom. So that would complete the entry of a new account into the system. Thank you so much.